Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's 251 Designs, and this is where we're going to show you different things about production, fabrication, and many other things. So you are here to learn to make a little bit of money on the side. I had to learn the other way, or this way too, so welcome. But let's talk about what we're going to do. So hold on. All right, here we are. This is what I make on the side. Pretty nifty. So those are trailer ramps, and they cost money and people like to pay it. And I have a little bit of time on my hands. I like to fabricate and play around. So I decided I'm gonna start making these. It's not that difficult. It's not a whole lot of money to make them. And you get paid a decent amount to make them. So all in all, I'm gonna show you how to do that. So let's take a look at the tools you need to start this process. All right, well, to start this process, you're gonna need a couple of things. And it's all right here. It's pretty simple. So you're gonna need some clamps, you're gonna need a square, something to write with, either soapstone or a marker, a tape measure, a cutoff wheel, not just a grinder helps too, but you need an actual cutoff wheel or some type of metal cutting device that can cut it straight as well, because that helps. Welding gloves, welding helmet, and a welder. So we're gonna go in more depth in another video, but this is the Arc Captain MIG 145 Pro. It is a flux core style MIG welder. It's perfect, it's cheap, easy to use, it does the job. I've made a couple ramps with these, with this, and I've used the stick mode on it, I would call it, because it does MIG and stick, just flux core MIG and stick, and it works very well. I enjoy it. For the price, you can't beat it. So we'll talk about all the features with it in another video, but I'm going to teach you how to make some money on selling ramps on Facebook or whatever else, because it is simple. All you got to do is just make them, and it's not difficult. And then I'm going to show you some tips and tricks how to make them even quicker manufacturing wise when you put money back into your business or your hobby. So all these tools right here cost less than $500, and I'll say that the $500 investment just on metal alone, I make $1,300 on that $500 investment. So every time I put $500 into this business, I get $1,300 out of it. So that's good. It's a good number, I would think it would be for a hobby. So let's get to making these, and I'll show you some tips and tricks that I've learned to make this job a whole lot quicker, to make more money an hour for this. So profit's always the best thing. Let's get to it. All right, so we've got our 4-foot ramps cut. Everything to go with them. I cut a little extra just because I was cutting. Cut them off with a cutoff wheel. They come out very clean. There's a couple of edges right here, but they'll come off pretty easy. You can hit them with a grinder or anything else, but for the most part, they're pretty clean. Now, the quick part is I stopped using those because cutoff wheels, they can start costing you money, and they're not cheap, and they'll get used up a lot. So I've got two options. I've got a bandsaw, it's right here, I'm gonna use, and it can work pretty well. It sometimes puts an angle on it. It doesn't cut 100% straight. So this helps, but it's not perfect. The other thing I use, sorry, it's starting to rain, it's getting a little loud, is my plasma cutter. This is my Cut 50 by Arc Captain. It works wonders. It keeps everything pretty tidy and makes it a whole lot quicker with minimal usage of consumables. So I can cut a whole lot more of these. They're not 100% straight, but they do what they need to do. They fit in here, and when you weld them, it gives a little gap, almost like a bevel sometimes, and you just fill that in. It's perfectly fine because I weld mine all the way around. I weld it up, down, and both sides, so it does not come off. But it gives you a rough estimate on what you're doing with this. The other quicker thing I've started using, which I'm making one out of on my 3D printer right now out of plastic, so it makes it a little bit easier and more precise, is I have a piece of angle that's cut at 12 inches with a 3/16 edge on the back of it. So it butts up to it, line it up, draw my lines, cut it. So they're pretty much almost all exactly the same. They're a little bit below 12 inches because 3/16 on each side ends up being more than a 1/4 inch over what your 12 inches is. Not a bad thing, but you save material this way. So you have a little bit of excess normally whenever you're doing things. You still got excess. I mean, you could use it if you wanted to. That's not really going to hurt. So just makes the ramps just a hair wider. But I'm trying to stay in the 12-inch section. So now that we have these laid out, now my rule of thumb is, first I get this 100% straight. I have this Harbor Freight titanium fixture table. It helps tremendously compared to a floor, because the floor is not always flat. This is a heck of a lot flatter than a floor. So put it in here, get everything I need to measure it up, and then the runners right here I put every 10 inches. So it gives a little bit more stability, and the tire has more contact if that's what you're bringing up. If it's a skid steer or something like that with tracks, you're gonna need a whole lot beefier trailer or a ramp, but you can do it. It's not difficult. I did one out of C-channel and with a arc welder, which was the MIG 145 Pro. I used the arc mode on it and did that. So since these are 2.5 inches or 2 inches, it's 1.5 inches from one side to the middle. So I measure from the end, and every 11.5 inches is a runner. Quick, easy, makes the job a whole lot easier. All right, so we get all our runners in, and once we do that, we're good to go. And then we start welding everything in. And first we tack it, measure it up, make sure everything's even, both sides measuring up where these runners go. And then we tack it, then we start welding. Pretty quick and simple. Let me tack these in, and then we'll get to the end up here, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, now that we have everything tacked in place, we take what I like to call one of the, well, that's not the clean cut one. We'll cut this one right here, because this is gonna be our extra one right here. If we have to shave it down, we'll shave it down, because it looks like it's just a hair over. So we have this one, it's a clean shaven one. Put it right here, and I like to have about 3/4 of an inch hanging off the area right here. And then this one is just here to brace it. So it looks like I do need to shave just a little bit off the sides, which isn't bad. I'll do that real quick and we'll set this in. All right, that's tacked in place, ready to go. We've got 3/4 of an inch, both top and bottom. And yeah, so we're doing good. Let's tap this down a little bit. There we go. That'll work. Make sure this is 100% square with the 3/4 inch inlet and outlet. And it is. And now we can start laying beads on it. So we're gonna start throwing down and making sure that this is all in here. I'll take this piece, lay it over, and we'll weld the seam to the angle right here so it makes sure it does not move. because this has all the pressure on it from the trailer. So we want to make sure it's good to go. So that's what we're going to do now. Well, we got one done, completely welded, and it is flat as flat can be. So I'll weld the edges up top. See if it's still warm. I'll weld the edges down below, and make sure I weld around each one. I don't want these things popping off ever, and I don't think they will. A lot of places they'll just weld just right here. Other places they'll just weld the little triangle, the angles up there. But this is the second one. It's coming together. It's got some welds here, there, tacks. It's flat on the table to hold it straight because yeah, this one did warp on me a little bit when I started, and then I clamped it to the table and it kind of formed itself back together. But all in all, I will have roughly 3 hours total in welding all this together, maybe 3.5 hours. But we're going to break all that down in price. We're going to break all that down in where you are looking for everything, and then what all this equipment cost versus any of your consumables versus what you're making. So yeah, let's sit down with a notebook, pad, paper, whatever, and we're going to go over it. So yeah, let me get the numbers and we'll talk about it. All right, well, I finally got the numbers together for the trailer ramps, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute when I find my stool that my daughter stole. All right, and as you see, we got some more projects to look into, which is 2 big old ESOB welders from the 80s. So let's take a seat and let's do some screen recording and talk about numbers. So, all right, going over the breakdown of the trailer ramps and everything. So I make about 3 different sizes. I'll make a 4th if a custom order comes in. But the 3 different sizes is 4 foot, 5 foot, and 6 foot. And they're all by 12 inches. I do it at a 2x2 3/16 like I said in the beginning of the video. And each one is broken down to what all I use, what it costs, and everything else. So one stick of 2x2 by 3/16 at 20 foot is $63. So when you break that down, it goes down to $3.15 a foot. All right. I've also done a couple out of C-channel, 3-inch C-channel, and it is $85 for a 20-foot stick. I have these cut down because they don't fit in the back of my truck, and sometimes they charge me for it, sometimes they don't. Those they didn't. The C-channel per foot is $4.25 a foot. The reason why it's important to know your feet or your dollar per feet is that's the way you learn your profit. So a 4-foot ramp or set of ramps is about 26 feet. 26 feet is about $81, almost $82 in metal alone. So when you look at metal alone, I mean, and say you have metal alone and then what you're selling it for. Well, what I sell them for is $170 a set. So that's $90 difference from what I make to what it is. And as you can see on the screen right here, I'm just going down this list and you can see each one. So when you're looking at it, it takes me about 3 hours to cut and weld and everything, the 4-foot ramps. Now I stacked on 30 minutes per ramp because they're just longer, so they take a little bit more weld, and it doesn't really take that much longer. And so the cost per ramp or per set, or excuse me, the cost per hour that I'm building these, it's kind of off by a little bit. I actually make a little bit more than what this is. So say the 4-foot profit for it is $72. All right, well, $72, you break it down, and that's after you spend say $5 a set on welding wire. Gas for the welding is about $6.25 a set. And then cutoff wheels, I'd say about 3 to 4 cutoff wheels I don't even use cut-off wheels, and they're $1.60 per wheel, depending on where you're getting it. So you break that down, and it's about $11, $12, 13, 14, almost $15 per set for the extra material you're using. So at the end of all of that, dollars per hour on each set. On the 4-foot, I look at $24. On the 5-foot, $20, almost $21. On the 6-foot, almost $21. Like I said, that's an exaggerated cost due to the factor of hours per job. And if I'm doing 3 hours on the 4-foot, 3.5 on the 5-foot, and 4 hours on the 6-foot, it will vary because I can knock a lot of things out. If I'm making multiple sets, it cuts down in the time, makes me more money per hour, and I'm just doing it to make money after that. So I do that. There is another little extra piece that I give an incentive for, and that incentive is I have my plasma torch, my CNC plasma table. If you have access to something like this, it makes things to where you can do certain things, certain extra. So you can put names on your ramps to personalize them, or basically say that this is this company's ramp. So as you weld them on as well, you weld them a certain way to where they can't just cut them off real easily if they're stolen. It's actually a pain in the butt to take them off once you put them on. But you cut out their name, and it's about, what, $40, $25 to $40 per ramp that you would have a name on. So that can get you up to almost extra $80. And the material usage is not that big of a deal. The time is what it takes. So if you have a pre-programmed time or a pre-programmed stencil in your computer towards the size you're doing and the layout of it, to where you just type out their name and then you just put it in the program, cut it out, it would save you time, which ultimately makes you more money. So look into it. If you like it and it works for you, drop a comment. If you're having trouble, drop a comment. We'll talk about it. Get out there, see what you can do. Keep checking in. There's going to be more ways to make money. There's going to be more tips and tricks for all that. We're going to look at some different machines and everything to speed this process up and to make this a whole lot quicker, or to kind of change the game of what you're doing and figure out ways to make more money to build your shop, tools, whatever else. So thanks for joining in. Until next time.